Friday, April 13th, Tuftonboro Selectmen's work session is now called to order. Morning, Chief.
Morning.
First item we're going to deal with is further work on the revised docking and parking ordinance. Now, last month we sat, we looked at the old one and the new one, your draft that you were working on.
I made a few changes. I probably missed some of the things. I know I corrected Melbourne Wharf Road to Melbourne Wharf Road.
Okay.
I added the, on each of the sections, I put in the times. You know, so that, like at Union Wharf, at the last paragraphs, no boat shall be docked. So those are primarily the things I took care of and updated. I believe I was also supposed to put a list of all the old ordinances in there at some point. I did not do that yet. That was,
Okay.
and then we got, we did not have to reach out to Fishing Game about the ice houses. There was only one that was left past the deadline, and we made some calls and were able to get a hold of somebody to get them out, get it out. Somehow it disappeared.
That was the one at the beach parking lot, right? Yeah. Which got me to thinking that perhaps we need to have something specific for that parking lot. I mean, we're talking in here about live use of private passenger automobiles.
Right. And I looked at those definitions because there's also one for private passenger vehicles, which is 259.81. And the difference is this includes motorcycles, the other one does not, so this one's a little broader definition.
All right.
What about RVs?
Huh?
RVs and trailers?
It has to be under 9,000, and it doesn't include trailers, I believe.
So, but one of the things that that I was wondering with respect to the beach parking lot is to specifically call out that it's not for trailer parking, not for staging, not for bomb houses. I want to say staging the bomb houses, because obviously if somebody comes down there, they're going to put it on the ice, but how do we get across to everybody that if you pull your bomb house off the ice and you want a place to stick it until you take it home, you get the parking lot across the way and not the beach parking lot.
And I looked at that earlier on,
Yeah.
because it was an issue. But one of the things I found was that after that last storm we had, all that snow, it had blown off the ice, hadn't even been plowed down in there. What had been plowed up was against one of them that was there, and then, so it was like, you couldn't get it out. I don't think anybody could have gotten out if they wanted to, without considerable, there was a drift of snow across the road that even with the four-wheel drive, I had to drive through to a degree. Beyond Lassie's, but between there, so.
Well,
It would have been a difficult thing, but I guess to go with that, we need signage to clarify that.
right, and also, we talk about a $50 per day fine for violation, but I'm wondering if we want a different fine for if somebody leaves a bomb house down there.
It's covered by the RSA.
The fine?
Fishing Game has laws on the book about when your bob house has to be off the ice, the condition that it's in, you can't leave it on public property.
Yeah, it can't be beyond April 1st.
Right, it has to have your name and your phone number on it.
Right, well, I understand that, but we're talking about the issue of people pulling a bomb house off the ice, and instead of taking it over the 19 Mile Bay lot, they leave it in the lot right there.
I don't have a copy of the law, but it's my understanding there's an RSA
There is.
that says you can't do that. I can't take my Bob house and leave it on your property or the town's property.
Right. So if we want to give them opportunity to park in the lot across the way, we need to include that, right?
Sure.
And just because the RSA says you can't leave it in the lot, doesn't mean that we shouldn't incorporate it in our ordinance and that we shouldn't put signage up down there to remind people. And it seems to me that a higher fine for a Bob house being left there as opposed to a car that's parked there when it's not supposed to be is not inappropriate. Just thinking out loud here,
Yep.
but one of the ways that we help people to comply with the law is make sure everybody understands it and what the ramifications are if it's not adhered to. Is there a provision in the law for the town to move Bob houses that
So
are?
under that particular law, the fish and game law anyways, it's for fish and game to remove it.
All right, is that a law or is that a regulation?
It's a law.
Okay, so fish.
That's when it's on private property, so when you take it off the ice, it says you have a deadline of April 1st.
To have it off the ice.
To have it off the ice, and you can't leave it on private property adjacent to the ice, all that good jazz,
Mhm.
or other people's property. But, in reading that law, because we were discussing that in the office, it says it's for fish and game to enforce. Fish and game, it says the department, meaning fish and game,
Right.
can remove it at the owner's expense and dispose of as needed. Like I said, we got it done. It was a couple days afterwards, but we got it done.
But
after
it's
the-
sat in that lot for almost a month.
That's true, it's out for a while, that's correct.
So, I guess in my view, if it sat on the ice until the 31st of
That's-
March, aside from whether it's gonna fall through or not,
Yeah, that's fish and game.
that's fish and game. But as soon as it gets dumped in our lot,
Then it's our issue.
then,
Also as an unregistered trailer, which is
Yeah.
a motor vehicle. We have a lot of concurrent jurisdictions here. We have burning permits and things that the fire department got involved with.
I think I forgot to do something else. I believe when we talked about it last time, I think I was supposed to do like 19 Mile Bay is like one, go through that, and then these would be, like, these under penalty and stuff would be letters. I think that's what, when you asked that, Chip.
on
So that 19 Mile Bay lot would be like A, 19 Mile Bay Beach Park would be B, Union Wharf would be C, on down. So penalty might be L or something like that.
Want a couple more?
No, all set.
You sure?
Yep. Here's my recollection, correct, Chip, you wanted like one for 19 Mile Bay, two for 19 Mile Bay Beach, and then go to letters for these down here under prohibitions. I think that's how we discussed it last time.
Yeah, we should get some pagination going here.
Okay,
And under prohibitions, item Roman numeral 1,
yep,
no motor vehicle should be parked at, we need to add at the 19 Mile Bay parking lot.
add or in, which do you think?
Well, you've used at
Okay,
after this. The same in Roman numeral 2, no boat, trailer, boat, or other vehicle should be parked at the 19 Mile Bay parking lot.
yeah, I used at later, I see that now.
Yeah. And if we turn the page to 14. No vehicle may be parked on Union Wharf Road.
That was,
That's a little extensive, isn't it?
that was verbatim from the old ordinance. I guess
Because
that
that
took
goes
a
all the
lot.
way out to here.
I understand that. That's verbatim from the old ordinance about Union Wharf. Obviously, like I said, this was a starting point for discussion. I thought that was a little excessive myself.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want a distance up from 109 or, I think that was the intent. I don't know why they did that. It was BA before Andy, it was an old
Yeah.
ordinance. And I think it had to do, I'm assuming it had to do back before the road was wide and there may have been parking along that road down by the end is what, because that's where the only no parking signs ever were. It was down by, the store. So I assume that there was a distance along there, they must have been parking.
I mean, we'd have to
Long
notify everybody on the road that they can't.
Well, I mean, it was an ordinance that was already done years ago.
Right.
I mean, it hasn't been a problem, so we haven't had to deal with it, so.
I think it's appropriate to say no parking along Union Wharf Road within X
Number of
feet
feet.
of Route 109.
Yeah. So,
Because I think what you're saying seems like it's reasonable, okay? People that were going down to the water, there was no place to park, so they start parking up Union Wharf Road and walking down to the,
Yeah, this was, I forget the year that was done, but it was,
a while ago.
yep.
yeah, it was 87, I believe. Yeah, I think it was 87 when they had that. So, that was before the new road was put in.
30 years ago.
Yep.
So, like I said before, I took what was there, kind of moved it into what we put in the meantime as a
Okay.
point, as a starting point for discussion. I did it, that was there verbatim. I do think it should be a distance, probably from the crest of that hill, just before by Bellemier's. Just
Yeah.
go down that hill to the, is probably a reasonable thing. Just because you come over that hill, if somebody's going around a parked car, would be a roadway hazard that I think was probably what they're trying to avoid back then.
So you can come up with a recommended
I'll come up with a
distance.
distance for that section.
And on 17,
Yep.
I don't know whether we're gonna run into I mean, where are they gonna park? I don't know if they have a parking area near that.
The problem is if they park, then who else is gonna be able to use it? It's
Well,
so
it's
small.
kinda self-limiting.
That's the other, I guess the question is, what is the intent of that? Is it for somebody that's on there to be able to launch their boat? Because there's no real parking there, that's the problem.
What I've
Or you
observed,
could park over on Tuckenborough Neck Road by the,
what I've observed before is that people do park there when their boats are in the lake. There's room for maybe a vehicle, maybe two vehicles with trailers to kind of snug up in there. So,
Yeah, I don't think it was, we didn't build a boat launch or are building a boat launch solely for the benefit of the residents of Mirror Lake.
but there is parking
Excuse me.
on Tuckenborough Neck on the left, isn't it? As you go down,
we mean by Piper Park?
yeah.
I don't know.
The town owns a section of land there, yes. But I don't know if there's been talk that could be designated parking area.
I thought the church, before they built their parking lot in the back, they used to park there.
I believe they did.
Yep,
Um,
yep.
it is-
Well, I guess what I don't have, conceptually don't have a problem with limiting parking by the boat ramp if we can specify another place to park and that's reasonably close. In other words, just say, you can launch your boat, but you can't park here.
Sort of like saying you can't launch your boat.
That's right, so.
Well, yeah, it does limit it to the people that have parking available
Somewhere.
somewhere,
else,
typically
right,
it's gonna be your homeowners on
Right.
that particular
Right.
area. The other problem though is if you just say you can park here, right, because we had to put rocks at one point, I think, there because it was bleeding over into the neighbor's property. It's not a very big access area. People were
That's
parking
correct.
on the neighbor's property. We had to
Right.
put some rocks there to try, or the neighbor did, or somebody put rocks there at one point because we were having a problem with that. Becomes kind of limited because I think you're right. I've seen like one or
Right.
two vehicles with trailers parked there.
So what I'm suggesting is we ought to come up with a parking area that we can put in here and and as a place where people can,
Or we can just strip that out of there and let it be self-limiting like it kind of is. I mean, I don't know that we've had a, since the rock, we don't have the same problems there that we see at other spots.
right,
Can we put an asterisk there and maybe come back to it?
Yeah, no,
There might be a magical solution.
Yeah, because we need to, I mean, the other element of that is trying to eliminate the launching from
Lang Pond Road.
Lang Pond Road.
Mhm.
And if there isn't a viable alternative, then we're gonna still find ourselves with people over there. You
Right.
know,
Right.
so we need to come up with something.
I mean,
Sounds good.
yeah, it hasn't, yes, at one point it was a problem, people started bleeding over onto, parking onto the other people's property, but now there's rocks to kind of delimit, limit that and prevent it, and it hasn't been an issue, like I said, one or two people, I don't see the, maybe because there is a lack of access and not a good launch, maybe that's why, maybe if we improve that launch, now we're gonna start seeing more people that, maybe we might need to revisit that if that becomes a problem. It hasn't been a problem there that I know of since the rocks have been put up. And we have bigger problems with parking in other areas.
And even going towards the church, that piece goes with Bullock's old house, doesn't it?
I'm not quite sure what the boundaries are there, but
Yeah.
I know the church has made more parking by buying a piece of land and removing the building, behind the church, so.
I don't know that we can direct people
And
to.
they also have really improved the area across the street, so. And they do park there during church services.
Yeah, I don't know that
Well,
we
let's
can.
put an asterisk next to it and come back to
I
it.
did note a couple of those, pagination specifically on the 19 Mile Bay Beach. We need to get a distance on the Union Wharf Road.
Yeah, I mean, that looks good.
What page are you on right now?
What page you want to be on?
Okay.
Yeah, I did all of my pages, Lloyd, so you can jump in.
Everyone's all set with page 1?
Yep.
Okay.
You want a copy?
Oh, that'd be great, thank you.
Or we're making changes.
Go through my master copy here. Are we leaving in all of the things that say subject to ordinance enacted? I had them crossed out.
I think that's what I was talking about earlier. I think we were gonna talk about putting that at the end, like a bullet list,
So on Union
at the
Wharf,
beginning.
on Union Wharf, I had that crossed out.
On page 2.
No, it's the old one, because I added stuff, so it's not page 2, but it is page, yes, page 2.
Okay.
Construction vehicles, and it says March 19,
Yeah,
and
under
then March 10.
Under Union Wharf,
Yep,
okay.
because we're actually, you're right, probably that should come out because I think that was in the, what was it, the 92 or 97 part, 2002 ordinance.
So that top of the,
Yeah, it'd
at
be
the top of
2004.
page 2, that sentence gets removed.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And what about the next sentence? About construction vehicles.
well, I have it, so what I did do incorporate, well, I didn't incorporate that later in, under prohibitions. As I look, I don't think I did copy that over.
So can you put parentheses around that so we
Yeah.
can approve it?
Yep.
Okay.
And then Melvin Wharf, I again have the ordinances listed there.
And what I remember it
Lake
was
Road.
when we talked about it before, we talked about whatever provisions we wanted to carry forward from the old ordinance, we would build into this one.
Right,
So that we got one document that somebody could look at and has the full range of what,
right.
uh,
I think that what we talked about before, and I apologize, I couldn't find my notes, so I was going by memory. I knew we talked something about removing them from the body, about having a list, I think, of the ordinances that this is meant to supersede.
Yes, right, right. So,
And cover,
remove the
cover the
references.
stuff, but remove it from the references from the body, have a
And-
list of what it
Right,
supersedes.
and make sure that whatever it is that we want to incorporate that's in the old ordinances, we're incorporating here, so that you don't have to try and track down and find some.
I'm down to Lake Road.
Yep,
In the second sentence, Lake Road is a town road and such temporary public docking is allowed in Melvin River along the Lake Road in accordance with ordinance enacted.
and I added the boat slip after that. There's also a boat slip on the northern side of the northernmost dock.
Okay, but are we deleting ordinances enacted?
Yes,
last
I,
time?
I've noted that too. I'm going to go through and remove everything to do with the ordinances
Yep.
that's in the body, pull it out, it's probably somewhere else in there too. I'll pull them all out, put a list saying this is superseding, intended to supersede all of these.
On the next page, other water access.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Before we go beyond
Oh, go ahead.
Lake Road, right, the boat slip is there for docking while loading and unloading, and there, I think we have a time limit on how long it can be used. I don't remember what it is, 15 minutes or something like that, but
Okay.
we should put a time limit on it. I mean, it's,
That's what I was wondering about too, because I didn't know if there was one by, I know we own it, but I don't know if we had a limit with it or how that was, it's never phrased in any of the prior ordinances.
Yep.
So it's,
So 15-minute docking,
that sounds reasonable to me.
yes.
because it's intended for when you launch and tie up while you're
And go
moving
move
your
your
trailer.
vehicle.
Right. If you're by yourself, okay, you can launch a boat, tie it up, move your trailer, come back and go. It's not,
And
this
if
is
you need it
not,
for a couple hours, you put it on the other side,
exactly,
so that other people can do the same thing if they come
Right.
along.
right.
Yeah, when I inserted that, I said that, I felt that was probably it, and I probably should specify that, it said it's the northern side of the northernmost dock. Probably should put the name of that,
Now,
well, that's ours,
the River Reach.
River Reach.
Mhm.
But I wondered if I should put that name in there, River Reach, okay, I'll put that.
The next sentence, no boat shall be docked at the town dock. We don't have a dock there, do we?
Along the road.
Okay, along the
The
road,
bulkhead,
okay.
Yep,
There's a, along the road, there's that.
Bulkhead.
Yeah,
yep,
and some people do tie up there. We've had issues with people leaving them overnight.
Yes. Now, at the very end of that, where it said with written permission of the Board of Selectmen,
Mhm.
I said, or designee. That allows other boards to say to someone.
Yeah, I'll note that's to go everywhere.
On the next page, where it says other water access,
Yep.
with permission of the Board of Selectmen or designee.
Temporary parking? No, which part?
or other water access.
Other water access.
Do we need to go that far, Lloyd? I wonder.
Well, what happens if there's a situation and the police can say, yeah, you can park there for a half hour, you know, they're pulling in a boat that's sinking or something like that, allows the police to use their discretion.
So it'd
yeah,
be,
I'm lost. On temporary parking on town-owned property is allowed,
Yes,
get other water access. You're suggesting that we go beyond that?
And
that is with permission of the Board of Selectmen or
No.
its designee.
Why?
yeah, why? I'm wondering why too. I
I
can
mean,
see putting a limit on it. Like
What we're
from,
saying is for commercial operations to use tie-up on the big lake,
He's talking
they
about-
need to have permission. Other water access is any other place in town where somebody might access the water.
I think he's talking like somebody their car breaks down.
Yeah,
Are they in violation if they said, hey, my car's broken down, I parked out here, because technically, we talk about this, other property, temporary parking, we said, okay, you can leave it here overnight, can we have that authority, I think is what.
That's where I'm coming from. Yes.
And I guess my thought is, yes, they do. Why do we want to have them, they have to come to the Board of Selectmen to say, can I park my vehicle here?
He's saying it's not necessarily spelled out in here, I think is what Lloyd's getting.
Okay.
Right, that's what you're getting at, is it's not spelled out and defined, as we have that authority to do that. I think that's,
I'm flexible, I'll go with the majority rule.
but I think that's what you're getting at, though,
Yes.
right? Yeah. Which, I'll be honest, that's our practice. If somebody says, my boat broke down, I can't get it back, I'll get it out tomorrow, I'll come back with some,
Yeah, my trailer has a flood.
Okay, I'm thinking other water access being.
right, I think he's
There's
talking
another water
globally.
access down on Tuftsboro Neck.
Yeah,
There's another water access up on Brown Road. There's
Right.
a water access onto.
yeah, I think Lloyd went beyond the other water access to talk about globally as far as like, to everything in the sense that there's an ability to, in that emergency situation, give an exemption out. He did talk about the other water access, but I think he was talking, maybe this should have another bullet point in there, that in case of emergency, the
Yeah,
selectmen
but
or
I break
designate.
it out of the other water access. On the other water access, I'm fully on board of saying public parking is between the hours of 6 AM
Right.
and whatever. and
Same as the others.
six-
Right.
Yeah, whatever they are.
Right.
I think it's 6 to 10 PM.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing that we're specifically saying you need written permission for, from this board, is commercial boats
Right.
using the wharfs or docks of the town,
Right.
not vehicle parking, right?
That's, I think that's what the
So,
idea is.
yeah. So,
Yeah, because we need to have some
well,
accountability if something happens where they pull in an 80,000-pound load of something and
right.
tear up the surface or beat up the dock.
It just changes the nature of the use
Yeah.
of the facility, and I think that's the whole idea behind that, so, but with respect to parking on town roads, I think you guys handle it well. When, it doesn't make sense that we would want to tie your hands and make it hugely difficult for somebody that's, so somebody wants to park on out by the road.
And there's public access on the Lang Pond end of the lake.
Yes,
We're eliminating boat access there, but there's beach access.
there's no
water
boat
access.
launching, right. You can carry a kayak across and launch it there, but you
But
can't trailer
And
launch
there's
it.
parking available there.
Right,
Yep.
So should we include that in this?
I think we've globally, under other lake access,
Okay.
all right,
All right.
yeah,
what we're
Okay with
saying,
All right.
other water access, because it also covers our beach out on Cow Island,
Right.
which is probably not gonna be too many vehicles parked out there, but it
Let's
does
go.
say what you can use it
Let's
for.
yeah.
I guess globally, because you get the end of Cross Neck, a few other spots that probably escape our minds, this is what we kind of expect those properties to be used
There
for.
are properties between Eaglemere and Cross Neck, and I don't know the exact location, but over the years, there is technically public access
Yeah.
through some of those easements.
I mean, obviously though, we haven't had issues with those
No.
other than,
Well, Cross Neck used to go right to the water. I haven't been there.
Still does.
still does,
Still does.
Yep.
but,
Yeah.
I mean, other than,
It's not an improved ramp.
There's also, you go in Mirror Lake Estates, I think there's access at the end of that road. I think you'd be hard pressed to use it.
yeah, I was gonna say, I thought it just ended in somebody's driveway. Turn around in their driveway is tough.
I'm all set, so can I go on to Tufton Road parking permit?
Yes.
I wanted to
You talk
add
about having us
or designate,
or designate,
yes.
for the fee?
No, where it says,
At the end of the paragraph there. The
Yes,
fee
or designate.
shall, for the permit shall be as established by the board. No, I don't think you want to, the board is
Yeah.
going to establish the fee.
Yeah, we gotta do
Why would,
that.
why would we want to,
I don't think we can designate it.
yeah,
the other thing is, we have a couple of other parallels. People who want dump stickers go to Clay, but they can get them here. People who want burning permits go to the fire
Right, 'cause
station.
you talked about having weekends if somebody showed up, because we
Right.
run into that sometimes.
Because you're ultimately going to be going down there.
And
Are you comfortable with taking on a little more response or having your
Yeah.
department?
Yeah.
The other thing is, and I'm thinking,
The only thing I worry about that is if we set some limit, that I wouldn't want somebody coming into the town office saying, I like my 4 permits, and then showing up at the PD not knowing that they've got 4 permits already. Can I get my 4 permits? And then all of a sudden they've got 8 permits.
yeah.
Not that I think that's gonna happen, but there's sometimes, there needs to be some so we all know we're on the same page. We just have to work that out.
In
All right, so
fairness,
you keep a spreadsheet with that information on it?
It's actually a handwritten, you and I have spoken about this, it's a handwritten sheet that we have, name, phone number, and so forth. The problem that the police department, I understand, was having is, they're given 4 permits, and those permits get a renewal sticker each year. Well, it's literally just a sticker that goes on it. Sometimes
With the
people.
year.
Yeah, so sometimes people they don't come in typically with their
Mhm.
passes for us to write the number down again. So of course, that number gets buried deep, it could be from 10 years ago, well, however long ago you guys started doing this. So Tom and I were talking, last fall, Tom and Faith, about, I said, we tried to come up with a way to fix it, so we just added like a sub number to these years. So for instance, now this year it says 2018-A01. Well, that will help them, and we're working
To
together
know
now to clean the
who
departments.
That was.
Yeah, it's rather, because otherwise, do you follow what I'm trying to say? Otherwise,
'Cause we have hang
they're going
tags.
by a book
Right.
with just a name and a number,
Right.
no permit number. Now they'll have a permit number or a sticker number to reference. And I sent them the spreadsheet, and we'll keep in touch.
Well, the other thing with respect to if you're worried about duplicate tags, let's say you keep this list in a notebook with the
Yeah.
numbers and stuff. When you're not here, or when we're not in the office, you give it to the police department. It
Right.
stays over there. So there's one binder that has all this information in it, and whoever has the binder can give this stuff out. I mean, it's kind of a,
Or most likely, they're gonna come in during the week, we can refer them over to the town office.
Exactly.
In the weekend, we can just come back, Monday and say, these are the ones we did, and if we find out that we did, we can work that out.
Yeah.
I'm sure that we work that out. The big thing is we went to the hang tags versus the sticker, because some of the stickers would be, people would get new cars, or, oh, my daughter's coming up this weekend, so we went with the hang tags, and I think it's worked better for them anyways, I think, and more reasonable to work that way, but.
the other reason why I appreciate you taking on, or your department taking on a little more responsibility, I'm thinking in years past, there was an incident where I think in off-season, a truck showed up early towing a modular house. Where could they put it? And they were given permission to.
Well, one sitting there the other day.
Right,
yeah.
Type thing.
Now, when they do that, do you know about it, or is it,
Not this time. Sometimes I do, sometimes they've talked to Jack about it.
well, at the very least,
I should
we
notify.
ought to know about it.
Yeah.
It
I know
helps,
sometimes
it
they
helps
talk to-
whoever's hauling it, I would think, if you guys are aware it's there.